This podcast includes content created using artificial intelligence tools. All information is for general purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, legal, or regulatory advice. Listeners should verify information independently and consult qualified professionals for personalized guidance. Welcome to the Luxembourg Fundcast. Today, we're doing a really critical deep dive. We're looking into the engine room of fund governance, the modern board meeting. You know, with the CSSF focusing so much more on substance and, well, actual effectiveness, the boardroom has become, well, it's both a strategic command center and, let's be honest, a bit of a legal minefield. Every single decision, every line in the minutes, it has to be defensible. And just so everyone's clear, all our analysis today, everything we discuss, it's based on the regulatory landscape as we see it on October 26th, 2025. Our mission. Pretty straightforward, really. We want to give you a professional playbook. We're going to dissect the whole life cycle of a Luxembourg Fund board meeting, right from setting the agenda all the way through to crafting minutes that are, truly bulletproof. Before we continue, we'd like to mention that the Luxembourg Fundcast is created and produced by Bertrand Mariot, a practicing regulatory lawyer admitted to the Luxembourg and Paris bars. The mission of this podcast is to bring clear, free, and reliable information sourced from official references that are carefully curated and continually updated and refined through high-standard, evolving prompt and context engineering on Luxembourg's financial regulation and investment funds to professionals and anyone interested in the Luxembourg Financial Center.
Absolutely. And it's really about moving beyond just ticking boxes. The quality of your board governance, it directly links to your regulatory risk profile. So today, yes, we'll guide you through that strategic pre-meeting bit.
Okay.
Then navigate the legal nuts and bolts of actually convening the meeting. We'll definitely highlight the dangers, particularly around conflicts of interest. That's a real minefield. And finally, we'll look at the business side, the economics of getting high-value corporate secretarial support. So first up, the agenda. It's not just a list, right? It's genuinely the board's first line of defense.
Okay.
The big risk we see, quite frankly, is using those generic sort of boilerplate agendas. They just don't cut it. To a regulator, it suggests, well, lack of specific oversight, maybe even adaptation.
So what is the CSSF looking for then? I mean, everyone has to talk about ESG, AML, or that's the Digital Operational Resilience Act.
Right.
So how do you make your agenda stand out, make it genuinely substantive?
That's precisely the strategic challenge. And yes, boards are focusing heavily on those big regulatory topics, ESG, DORA, AML. We know that from recent survey data from 2024.
Okay.
But the substance comes from tailoring those standing items. So instead of just regulatory update, you make it a focused decision point that reflects your fund's specific risks.
Can you give an example?
Sure. So maybe instead of just listing risk management report, the item reads something like approval of updated ESG data collection policy.
Okay.
To address new Article 9 investment reporting criteria. See? It forces a specific documented action tied to a current issue or vulnerability.
Got it. So the agenda itself drives action, not just discussion.
Exactly. It demonstrates active engagement by the board. Let's say market volatility is a big risk right now, impacting your hedging. Well, the agenda needs to show that as a discussion and decision point. It proves the board tackled that specific risk.
And this ties into governance codes, too.
Directly. Think about the ALFI Code of Conduct, especially Principle the 7th on risk management and Principle 8 on conflicts. A well-crafted agenda shows you're living those principles.
Okay, so strategy is set in the agenda. Then comes the board pack, curated by the corporate secretary. We know directors spend, over 4 hours on average reviewing papers.
That's right. The 2022 data suggests 4.31 hours. It's significant.
So if the pack is just this huge data dump, you've lost a massive opportunity to guide their thinking, haven't you?
Absolutely. The board pack should be the narrative supporting the decisions, not just a collection of documents. Best practice. Get it out at least 1 week early.
And the key components. Standard stuff.
Pretty standard, yes. Agenda, previous minutes, action tracker, key reports, financials, decision papers. But the format is crucial. Every single paper, host speaker, needs to start with a really concise executive summary.
Stating
its purpose right up front. For decision, for discussion, or just for information. No ambiguity.
And in today's world, with DORA emphasizing tech resilience, digital board packs seem less like a nice-to-have and more essential.
Totally essential. They boost confidentiality, help massively with version control.
Yeah.
It just aligns perfectly with that whole focus on ICT security under DORA. It's necessary now. All right, let's shift gears to the mechanics, the actual convening. Here, procedural integrity is just, well, it's non-negotiable.
Okay.
The validity of any resolution hangs on strictly following the rules. And the foundation, that's the law of August 10th, 1915, on commercial companies. The law, as we call it.
Okay, let's zero in on the essay, the Société Anonyme. What are the absolute must-dos for the notice?
Right. For the essay, notice has to go to every director. Traditionally, that meant registered letter.
Still.
Well, nowadays, other means are common, like email, if the director has individually agreed to it. That's the key.
Got it. And quorum.
Quorum. Critically important. The default in the law, that's Article 4444, says at least half the members need to be present or represented.
But wait, isn't it often stricter in practice? Fund articles often demand more, maybe 2/3 present. You can't just rely on that default 50%, can you?
You absolutely cannot. The Articles of Association are paramount. Always check the articles first. They often override the default.
Okay.
And another key point from Article 444, Paragraph 3, is modernization. Directors can participate remotely. Think video conferencing, other telecommunication means.
Unless the articles forbid it, right?
Precisely. Unless expressly forbidden. And importantly, those remote participants, they count towards quorum, legally speaking. They're deemed present.
That flexibility is obviously helpful, but doesn't it create new risks? I mean, if someone's dialing in from home, how does the corporate secretary ensure secure document access? Or, make sure there isn't someone whispering answers off camera?
That's exactly where good governance policy becomes proactive, not just reactive. The corporate secretary really needs to drive the implementation of a formal virtual meeting policy.
Okay, so what's in that policy?
It goes beyond just the letter of the law. It sets clear standards for the technology used, ensures secure ways to share documents during the meeting, and maybe even includes protocols to verify the identity and, the environment of the remote director. It's about showing robust controls, no matter where people are sitting.
Okay, so the meeting is convened correctly. Now we're in the thick of it. Deliberations are happening. The corporate secretary you mentioned acts as this governance guardian.
Yes. Actively advising the chair, keeping track of time, clarifying motions, and critically managing conflicts of interest in real time.
Right. Conflicts. That sounds like the biggest landmine here.
It absolutely can be.
Yeah.
Because an improperly managed conflict doesn't just, look bad on paper. It can actually invalidate the entire decision.
Really?
Yes. And it can expose the non-conflicted directors to liability too. So handling this right, it's pure proactive risk management.
Okay, let's be super clear then. For an essay, what is the exact strict procedure?
Right. The essay procedure under Article 441.7 is the most rigorous. Number 1, the conflicted director must formally declare their interest to the board.
Okay, declare it.
Number 2, make absolutely sure that declaration is recorded accurately in the minutes. Documented proof.
Recorded. Got it.
Number 3, the director must refrain from participating in the deliberation and the vote on that specific matter. They recuse themselves fully.
No discussion, no vote.
Correct. And number 4, this is unique to the essay. The conflict must be reported at the next general meeting of shareholders.
Wow, okay. That's quite formal. How does that compare to the SARL, the private limited company?
It's similar, but slightly different. For the managers, the gérants of an SARL, Article 71015, Paragraph 6, applies. They also have to inform the other managers, or sometimes the shareholders, and they must recuse themselves from the vote.
So, inform and recuse.
Yes. But that extra step, the mandatory reporting of the conflict itself to the next shareholder meeting, that's specific to the essay structure.
Okay, that's a key difference. Let's make this really practical. Imagine a director who also sits on the board of, say, the parent company of a service provider the fund is about to appoint, like a new central admin.
Perfect example. The corporate secretary has to manage this flawlessly. They ensure the declaration happens, it's minuted correctly. The director physically or virtually leaves the room for that agenda item.
Right.
And the minutes have to be incredibly precise. They must state the declaration, the reason for the recusal, and crucially, the final vote count needs to explicitly show it was passed by the remaining non-conflicted directors. The resolution was passed by the remaining ex-directors. That detail shows procedural integrity if you're ever scrutinized.
Very clear. Now, another tool boards use a lot, written resolutions. Surveys say something like 92% of boards use them.
That's right. They're very common, convenient for routine things.
But you flagged this earlier. Relying on them for big strategic decisions is a governance red flag. Why?
Exactly. Look, written resolutions are perfectly fine, legally permissible. For an essay, under Article 444.3, the key is they need unanimous approval from all directors, every single one.
Unanimous.
So they're great for Minor administrative approvals, signing off on a small contract, that sort of thing. Routine stuff.
But not for
approving the annual accounts or deciding on a major shift in investment strategy. Those really need proper discussion and debate.
Okay, but I can hear the practical pushback now. Directors are busy, time poor, telling them not to use written resolutions for anything significant.
Isn't that just creating friction? How do you balance efficiency with this regulatory perfection?
That balance is the corporate secretary's crucial advisory role. It's not about friction for friction's sake. The risk, the very real risk, is that if you consistently use written resolutions for important matters, it implies the board is skipping the robust debate.
Skipping the challenge function. Precisely. A regulator looking at those records might think, where's the evidence of real deliberation? Are they just rubber stamping management proposals? So the COSEC has to advise the chair. Look, using written resolutions here might seem efficient, but it significantly increases our governance risk profile. Is that a trade-off we want to make?
Okay, so the decisions are made, conflicts handled. Now comes the aftermath, the minutes. This is your ultimate legal record, your defensive shield.
And crucially, not just what happened, but why.
Exactly. The minutes have to capture the rationale. Why did the board make that decision? Just saying the board discussed the investment is vague and creates risk.
Right. So the goal is a defensible audit trail. Proof the board did its job, exercised due diligence, fulfilled its fiduciary duties like the ALFI code expects.
That's the goal. And beyond the basics, date, time, location, who was there, how they attended, quorum confirmed, the exact wording of resolutions, voting result.
All that standard.
Yes, but the rationale is the difference maker. So instead of the board discussed the investment and approved, it needs to be more like the board considered the geopolitical risks outlined in the risk report circulated beforehand.
Okay.
Reviewed the third-party ESG score against the fund's specific policy, discussed mitigation factors X and Y, and ultimately concluded that the risks were justified given the anticipated yield and strategic alignment. See the difference?
Much more detail. It protects the individual directors by showing what they considered.
Precisely. It evidences the factors they weighed.
And what about getting these detailed minutes done quickly? What's the best practice timeline?
Speed matters, but accuracy more so. Best practice. Aim to get a draft to the chair within, say, 2 to 3 business days.
Okay.
Then circulate to the full board within maybe 5 business days. Get comments back, finalize, get them signed by the chair and secretary.
In storage, where do they live?
They must be kept in the company's official minute book, physically, at the registered office in Luxembourg. That's a legal requirement.
How long do you keep them?
The legal minimum is 5 years. But honestly, for regulated entities, permanent retention is really the best practice. You never know when you might need to look back.
All right, let's talk about the actual business of board support. Choosing who provides your corporate secretarial services. You said it's a strategic risk-reward decision.
Absolutely. Think of it as a spectrum. At one end, you have lower-cost providers offering, let's say, standardized compliance. That's fine. But it effectively shifts more of the governance risk back onto the fund and its directors.
Okay. And the other end?
At the premium end, you're not just buying admin support. You're buying expertise, judgment, and active risk mitigation. That's why the pricing varies so wildly.
Right. We see different models. There's the fixed fee per meeting that can range from, 1,500 euros up to over 5,000 euros if it's a really complex ad hoc meeting.
That's about right, yes.
Yeah.
Covers the basics for a single meeting.
But the most common model seems to be the annual retainer.
It is. And this is where you really see that strategic difference reflected in price. The range is just enormous.
How enormous?
We see retainers starting around maybe 15,000 euros annually, but they can easily go well north of 100,000 euros.
Wow. What drives such a massive difference? Just fund complexity.
Complexity is a big factor, for sure. A straightforward alternative investment fund versus a multi-compartment UCITS CKV with lots of moving parts. That makes a difference.
Makes sense.
But it's also about the depth of service and, frankly, the level of risk mitigation the provider is offering and taking on.
So what specific services push you into that, say, 100,000 euro plus tier? What are you actually buying for that premium?
Essentially, you're buying peace of mind framed as strategic partnership. It includes things like proactive regulatory intelligence. They're not just reacting. They're anticipating the next ESG rule or helping you prepare for DORA implementation before it hits.
Okay, forward-looking advice.
Exactly. Plus, technological efficiency, providing secure, often DORA-compliant digital platforms for everything. And crucially, It often comes with higher levels of guaranteed legal indemnification within the service level agreement, the SLA.
Ah, the liability aspect.
Right. It reframes the whole function. It's not administrative overhead. It's presented as indispensable risk management support for the AIFM and the board itself.
Speaking of the SLA, that service level agreement sounds critical then for defining expectations. What are the key things you absolutely must negotiate hard on?
Two things stand out. First, the scope. Be incredibly explicit. Does the fee just cover producing documents, or does it also include strategic input on the agenda, actually facilitating parts of the meeting, actively tracking action points afterwards? Get it in writing.
Define the deliverables clearly.
Absolutely. And second, liability and indemnification. This is always heavily negotiated. Providers will naturally want to cap their liability. Often it's a multiple of the annual fee.
Right.
But as the client, especially if you're paying a premium fee, you need to push hard for carve-outs, specifically for the provider's gross negligence or willful misconduct. You need accountability baked in.
Okay, so wrapping this up, it's clear the corporate secretary role has evolved. It's far more strategic now, a real risk mitigator.
Definitely.
Before we finish, maybe let's quickly synthesize those key governance differences between the main legal forms we see for funds, the SA, the SARL, and those partnership structures like the SCSP, the Special Limited Partnership.
Good idea. The core differences really stem from their default legal setup in the law versus what's in their specific articles or partnership agreement.
So starting with quorum.
Right. For the SA, the public limited company, there's that statutory default we mentioned, 50%, unless the articles say otherwise. But for the SARL, the private limited company, and the partnerships, there's no statutory default quorum. It relies entirely on what their articles, or for partnerships, the limited partnership agreement, LPA, actually states.
Total reliance on the governing documents there. Okay.
What about written resolutions?
Again, a difference. For the SA, and typically the SARL, you need that unanimity. All directors or managers must agree in writing. Partnerships, though, especially the SCSP, often have much more flexibility defined within their LPA. They might allow for majority written resolutions, for instance.
More contractual freedom there. And finally, that crucial conflict of interest procedure.
This is a big differentiator. The SA, as we discussed, has the highest formal burden because of that mandatory reporting of the conflict to the shareholders.
Right, that extra external step.
Exactly. The SARL requires the manager to inform others and recuse themselves, which is vital. But that specific shareholder reporting piece, that's unique to the SA, making its conflict rules structurally more demanding on paper.
Got it. A very useful comparison. So, any final thought to leave our listeners with? Yes, a provocative one, perhaps. Given everything we've discussed, the rising regulatory focus on substance, especially with new things like Dorporo layered on top of ongoing AML pressures, the fundamental question, I think, for every single Luxembourg Fund board right now is this.
Okay.
If the regulator walked in tomorrow and asked to see your minutes from the last fiscal year, does the quality, the detail, the rationale captured in those minutes truly demonstrate a sophisticated, defensible reason for every single strategic decision you made? Is it truly bulletproof?
A very pointed question to reflect on. Excellent. This podcast is a collaborative and free resource that improves continually, so your comments or requests for new topics are highly welcome, especially on YouTube. We want to be a helpful strength for everyone working in the Luxembourg Financial Center at all levels. We are often asked how you can help us. Well, a great way to help is by subscribing to our shows on all major podcast platforms, including Spotify, as well as on Apple Podcasts, where a 5-star rating would really help us. You can also like our videos and subscribe to our YouTube channels, Rigor Media, and Bertrand Muriot Avocats. We also invite you to follow or connect with Bertrand Muriot on LinkedIn and to like and comment on our posts there. All relevant links will be available in the show notes. For our French-speaking listeners, you can also find our sister podcast in French. It was the Luxembourg Fundcast for you today. This podcast includes content created using artificial intelligence tools. All information is for general purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, legal, or regulatory advice. Listeners should verify information independently and consult qualified professionals for personalized guidance.